All right, guys, welcome back. It is time to celebrate another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show, one of the last of 2019. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. As we count down the hours here until a new decade, and we close it out, of course, with a little college basketball talk like we do each and every day of the week. Had a little bit of a reprieve there over the last couple of days with the holidays and all, but action was packed over the weekend in college hoops, and pretty much from here on out, Ralph, it's going to be college hoops, man, every day of the week. Conference play just around the corner, full time, so a lot to be excited about in the world of college hoops.
You know, absolutely, Joe, and if you look ahead even to next week, on Friday, where traditionally we've seen, only the Ivy League play a few years back, the Big Ten now playing some games. Wisconsin, Ohio State plays this Friday, so they're learning that Friday's a TV night, and big-time college basketball, I think FS1 has a doubleheader now each Friday. So we're going to have quality basketball 7 days a week.
Yeah, it is. We had some quality basketball over the weekend, of course. Let's get you guys caught up with what happened Saturday and Sunday. And, of course, we always like to start off with some of the bigger upsets there over the weekend, Ralph. And there were a few. There weren't as many as I thought there would be, but there were definitely a few that had some people scratching their heads there beginning on Saturday.
Only 6 upsets on Saturday by dogs of 2.5 or more. There were actually 8 on Sunday. So that is not a typo. All Saturday's card. Now, it wasn't a normal Saturday card, but of the top 4, you see Fullerton and Irvine, quality basketball in the Big West. And, I don't know, UCLA's been up and down, and we know they're going through their struggles, but Fullerton had not been a good team. And San Jose State against Pepperdine surprised me as well. They've really struggled, but they've shown a little life at home this year.
Yes, they have, and you're right. 8 upsets of 2.5 points or more there on Sunday, and I don't know. A lot of people still trying to tell me or trying to convince me here, Ralph, that the Ohio State game was some sort of anomaly. Like that'll never happen again. I kind of doubt that, don't I? In this year's college hoops world.
Boy, they were sloppy.
Yeah.
You had multiple guys with multiple turnovers and, playing Huggins and having to play that defense is, what you do. When you're a quality team, you want to be tested in those type of neutral settings and playing tough defenses. So, you play a top 10 defense, and they showed them what kind of work they needed to do. So, that's exactly the type of game you want to play and the type of game that's going to make you a better team.
Yeah, I mean, they're not exactly Virginia suffocating, but they are still a pretty good defensive team any which way that you cut it. And then, of course, we did have some big performances there, Ralph, over the weekend as well from some of these guys. And up at the top there is we've got Saturday on the bottom. I believe we've got Sunday here. And Marquette, Marcus Howard. I haven't seen his name in a while there for Marquette, taking on Central Arkansas, dropping 30 points in just 20 minutes there, Ralph.
Yeah, well, Marcus Marcus had that 106-54 win with Marquette on Saturday. So we know he can score, obviously. They were a huge favorite to Central Arkansas. They open up tomorrow, I believe, or Wednesday. They go to Creighton. So wanted to give them a few minutes to knock that rust off with your first game in 8 days, but by no means do you want to play those guys too long with your conference openers around the corner.
No, you absolutely don't. And, I mean, Oregon, Duarte there, Alabama State, 29 minutes, 31 points. 5 boards, 6 assists, and a steal there, Ralph. And, Oregon, too, is another one of those teams currently in the top 10. Everyone's getting ready to make that push here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, we know they can play defense. So, again, you see a 29-minute performance. So, excuse me, you're not going to play a lot of guys. Duquesne, sorry to say for my followers, I was on Duquesne yesterday. That was one of the worst losses of the day for the ATS things that we're going to get to next. But imagine what they would have lost by if they didn't have Marcus Weathers with 25 points, 13 rebounds. And, that was in a bad losing situation. New Mexico State, you see 17 points. Well, why does he make the list? 8 assists, 7 steals. Well, that's why you make the list if you're traveling queen.
Yeah, not the truth. 7 steals will absolutely do it. And then, of course, some of the bigger spread covers there, Ralph, over the weekend, and you've got them listed there. I mean, this was another one too that was interesting. The Wisconsin-Tennessee game, Ralph. That was another one that a lot of people were trying to sell me on Tennessee over the weekend.
Yeah, well, if you see, there's 6 of them. The greens are the ATS, the blues are the overs, and the browns are the under. The first 3 were from Saturday. The bottom 3 with Marshall over Duquesne starting the ATS are the Sunday games. So, San Jose State, again, a 10-point underdog, winning by 15, a nice 25-point cover. And Wisconsin, to me, the Big Ten is clearly the best conference in basketball. So, does that crossover surprise me? The margin of victory did surprise me because Tennessee, despite losing those 3 guys they lost, they've been in the games, and for them to only score 48 was a bit of a shock for me.
Not a real big shock, of course. Colorado yesterday taking down Iona at home, covering that by 28.5. But I cannot believe I'm seeing Virginia's name in an over column, Ralph. What in the hell is going? What happened, Ralph? They scored more than 40 points. What's going on here?
Well, if you look to the right, you see the line of 100, Joe, and that'll tell you why it gone over. There's not many times when you're going to think that a 121-point game is going to make the over list of the highest over covers. But, hey, it puts it in perspective. It's funny that you mention it, but it just goes to show you. I think Navy was, 352 as far as tempo goes. So, yeah, the 2 slowest tempo teams. But as long as you're shooting over 35%, you're still going to score some. So, game flew over the total, Joe. Flew over.
Wide over. It wasn't even close. Poor guys that had the under there going, you got to be kidding me, of all the times to back Virginia. But it was that kind of weekend. But again, guys, full card here today, and really from this particular point on, it's going to be an awful lot of fun on the college hardwood here, Ralph. And before we dive into some of these market trends and what's happening here today, we'll take a look at some of the trends and angles that you got on board for us here today. And what were some of the games and some of the angles you were looking at?
Well, couple sides, couple totals like we always do. And again, not saying that we like these teams or backing them, but just showing you the current form of the team, and it's your decision if you think they continue or not. Texas A&M at home has just been an under team. They play decent defense. We know that. They haven't scored. 4-17 over under at home their last 21. And the Zags, 8 straight overs. They are an efficient offense. I'll tell you what, they played Detroit tonight, and the total's high, but Detroit likes to press the pace a little bit as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if that goes for a 9th straight over. And then Howard, Howard is a team that isn't always lined. It's one of those extra games, but they're 2-12 ATS at home, and Idaho State 2-10 against the spread at home. They face Eastern Washington, who came off a couple-point win over the weekend.
And I got to tell you, Ralph, the market, one game stuck out to me here today that seems to be getting an awful lot of love from people, and you don't have to look any further than how about a Ivy League team taking on North Carolina, and this seems to be getting a lot of attention since Yale now 10-3 I think they're on a 7-game win streak. Playing teams like, Bucknell and Lehigh aren't exactly in the same class as what North Carolina has had to deal with, though, so far this year. And I'm seeing it. It opened up laying 6.5. I'm seeing 7s out there. It's even been pushed up, really, to about 8, even an 8.5 or 2 on the market there. So still without Cole Anthony, but it's quite obvious that a lot of people are starting to get on the North Carolina train, despite the record. You got to look a little bit deeper into Yale here to understand why it's happening.
Well, Yale's played a tough schedule. That's just because, they've played a lot of middle-of-the-road guys. They haven't played any 300s and only 1 non-conference. But they also have only played 2 top 40s. you played at Oklahoma State, a team you're very familiar with. You lose by 7. And then they went to Penn State and only lost by 2. Another loss, San Francisco in overtime. They've played 4 overtime games already. And, it's the same Yale team that's getting love because they just beat Clemson 54-45 this past the previous Sunday. So Yale is getting a lot of love, but, I've played against North Carolina once and won that game, but against Virginia. But you look at their losses, Michigan, a top 20 team, Ohio State, a top 20 team, Virginia, a top 20 team, Gonzaga, a top 20 team. And then the Wofford loss was that first game without Cole Anthony. So, while you say, yeah, they're struggling and they're not North Carolina, they're still a damn good team. I mean, they're still a top 50 team, and they're at home. And, you're at home off 2 previous home losses. You want to have a concerted effort from Roy Williams and the boys. I think being at Chapel Hill, coming off back-to-back home losses, is going to keep them pretty much motivated.
Another interesting game here, Ralph, getting an awful lot of attention here, and one team getting a lot of love. How about Buffalo taking on the Bonnies, man? St. Bonaventure here. Buffalo opens up as a 4-point favorite, but that's quickly been bet down to I'm seeing a lot of 2s across the board. So there are some serious Buffalo backers against the Bonnies here tonight at 7 o'clock.
What did we have with Buffalo? Losing their head coach to Alabama. We're not sure what's going to happen. Well, Jim Whitesell steps in and he's going to keep playing the same style. He's number 4 in offensive tempo, number 12 in tempo overall. They're a team that hasn't played a great schedule, hasn't played, anyone real tough. They played Connecticut and DePaul are their best 2 foes. They split those 2 games. Bonnie's one of those little local Buffalo area teams. You have Canisius, Niagara, Buffalo, Bonaventure. They all have their Buffalo 4 or 5 that they play and knock off. And, Buffalo knocked off Canisius and knocked off Niagara by 9 and 10 each of the last 2 games. So they're looking for the Buffalo sweep, and people obviously think they'll get it.
Yep, and they also people also think there's going to be a few points scored in the College of Charleston, Delaware game here, Ralph. Watching this total open up at 138.5. I'm seeing 144s across. Now, we've talked about Delaware in the past. Sneaky good team here, Ralph. College of Charleston certainly have had their moments there. And while Delaware is a 2.5 point favorite, it seems to be the total that's getting the most love here in this game. Apparently looking for some scoring to happen.
Yeah, how much has it gone up, Joe? What was the opener and where is it currently?
138.5. I'm seeing 144s.
Yeah, I look at the teams and I don't understand the move. So, there's times where I would lean the other way. Charleston, one of the slowest teams. And, they put up 76 against Drexel last game. But, Drexel's not a very fast-paced team. Right. And I just think the pace is not going to be there.
Right.
So they're expecting them to shoot very well. And Charleston clearly has a much better offense than defense. And Delaware has a much better offense than defense. So it's one of those games where it's not pace. The pace says play under, but both teams are much more efficient on the offensive side than the defensive side.
Yep, and you got one that flip-flopped on the card here today. Davidson taking on Vanderbilt. Opened up with Davidson as a 1.5 point favorite, but it has since gone the other way, Ralph. Vanderbilt getting an awful lot of love. They are now laying 2 in this matchup against Davidson.
Another situation where I lean the other way. I
think it's Davidson, a bad matchup for Vanderbilt. I really do.
Yeah, Davidson to me is the better team. The problem is, you look at their losses, and they've lost to their top 4 opponents they faced, but they haven't played anyone in the middle. I mean, Loyola, Chicago, Nevada, Northeastern, those are all teams that they beat that are in the 100 range, which is where Vanderbilt is. And their losses, Auburn, Wake Forest, Marquette, Temple, all teams in the top 100, much better than Vanderbilt. So, Eileen Davidson, no question.
Yep. All right. So we've got a couple of games here on the card here, Ralph. Some interesting dogs that stuck out to us here on a few of these games, and we just mentioned one of them, of course, with Davidson flipping, now being the underdog on the road against Vandy. But was there another dog on the card that you had circled here today?
I give a lean with Elon at home. William and Mary going on the road. I don't trust their offense to be able to do that early on the road. And Elon's an ugly team, but William and Mary's played 190th schedule. This is the opener for the Colonial for both teams. And I just think it's tough to take that offense on the road for an opponent that's familiar with your style of offense.
There's another game out there. I just don't. The number is just too high. I think the value is there for our friends over at Tulane, the Green Wave. Yeah, I know they're taking on Memphis, but that 15.5 or 16 number seems like a bit much here, Ralph. And Tulane, listen, Tulane's been competitive, and I don't have any doubt they likely score in the 70s, somewhere around those lines. They've only allowed about 65 points or fewer, 5 out of the last 7. Now, Memphis is going to get theirs. We know that. But let's face it, they've scored 71 or less in 4 out of their last 5 games. So can they keep it within 15.5, 16? I think Tulane's got some value there.
Yeah, I can see the side. The thing that really has impressed me about Memphis, and we're going to see what happens now when it gets into conference play, is so much is made of their offense, but it's really their defense that just has them playing so well. So, Penny Hardaway certainly has his team in a position where, they're
fired up.
Yeah, I have them in the top 25, but again, you're Memphis, and yes, you're certainly excited for your conference opener, but, they also have Georgia coming in. And while Georgia's not the best SEC team, having an SEC team come and play at your facility on Saturday is a big deal. So when you are a mid-major, it's tough to say, hey, you may be looking past a conference opponent, but you really may be looking past a conference opponent to see who's coming in on Saturday.
That's so true, too. It's a lot of points, 16 tonight here, but there are a couple of marquee matchups, of course, that we'd like to center on, and I can tell you certainly from a betting perspective, from a handle perspective, there seems to be a number of people excited about these two matchups here, Ralph. First, we'll take a look at how about Xavier and Villanova? And Villanova opens up as a 5.5-point favorite, total 139.5 in this one, Ralph. And Villanova 4-6-1 against the number. They're 6-0 straight up in their past 6 home games against the Musketeers, who 4-8-1 against the number on the year, Ralph, including 4 of them at the Pavilion. Haven't exactly been money makers here. You leaning one way or the other in this matchup?
Well, I'm leaning under. And, while you mentioned those records, Joe, I will say this, that the last 2 Villanova home games against Xavier were not at the Finneran Pavilion. They were at the Wells Fargo Center, which holds 20,000. So this is the first time these Villanova kids are going to be in the Pavilion, which only holds 6,000. So a whole different setting playing, in that smaller arena where Villanova is tough. And, I just think the defense is going to be there. I think the point guards match up where they negate each other. And that's the big deal when you talk about Jeremiah Robinson Earl. He gets him the scoring, and then Gillespie as the point guard leads the way, but Xavier has the strengths in the same spot with Quentin Gooden at point guard, and then Tariq Jones is the center, which matches up to Vanderbilt. So with the matchups and the point guards and the big guys that score, I think it'll be a lower scoring game where the defenses take over.
It's interesting, too. It looks like, Xavier's turning the ball over an awful lot this year. A little over 14 times per game. That's a risky proposition when you're taking on a team like Villanova, who's back, 21st? Right before Christmas. They ended up upending Kansas, right? So this is an interesting matchup here, as is the one that's going to be, another one. We're looking at DePaul here, are we not? A team that you and I have talked about this year, taking on Seton Hall, and, of course, it's all about Miles Powell. Concussion, no concussion. Is he back? Is he not back? I do think he's going to be dressing for this one tonight with Seton Hall taking on DePaul.
Joe, there's times where I have a situational play as well, and this is a system that falls into that. And, the difference between a system and an angle, when we talked about the angles, a system is when a team is in a position where any team in that position has that record. This goes back to 2015. In conference games, when an opponent has lost their last two, each is a favorite to the same foe, and now they're an away dog, they've gone 64-42, 60.4%. So that's Seton Hall. Seton Hall is a team that had dominated DePaul, had before last season, they were 13-4 against DePaul. Well, what happened? They were a 7.5 and a 2-point favorite last year. DePaul swept the card against them. So, I look for Seton Hall to get revenge. The line is made with Powell not playing. Now, right. I will say this. He was cleared to practice on Christmas Day. So he's out of protocol, concussion protocol. He has full practice each of the last 2 days. But Kevin Willard said this. He said, "We'll see about tonight. There is no question he'll be playing against Georgetown." So, it's interesting. It's interesting to see, is he going to play or not? Because you got to remember, Seton Hall is also with Sandro Michavilla, who is probably their number 2 scorer. So if Powell doesn't play, you have the top 2 scorers out, and I have to think under. And you look at what they did against Maryland. Yeah, did it go under? Yeah, 52-48 it went under. So, if I'm watching this game and Powell is playing, if you see him warming up and he's playing, I like Seton Hall. If Powell's not playing, I like the under.
Yeah, that kid broke his wrist back in early December. They're saying about 5 weeks, so we probably won't see him till January. I will say this about DePaul. They've actually upped it on defense a little bit this year. But, listen, even without Paul, the size advantage is not something you can overlook here for Seton Hall. They got a 7'2" dude in Romero Gill. They got another 6'10" in Therese Samuel. So, they're going to have – it's going to be a tough time for DePaul, though I do anticipate they're going to be pretty motivated to open up at home here, conference game here against the Blue Demons, who – we've been impressed so far with them this year. They've shot much better, more efficient, playing a little more defense. But I just think they're outmanned in this game here with Seton Hall. Are they not, even without Powell?
Yeah, I agree with that. DePaul was a team that was picked last, in the Big East. So, early on, did they surprise Iowa when they went into Iowa, motorboated them 93? Yeah, they did. But, we know they're a better team. We know they have a couple transfers that are playing great. We know they're not the worst team in the Big East. But, again, you're now playing an opponent that knows you, that you upset twice last year, and they know you're 12-1. It's a different type of motivation now in conference play.
Yes, it certainly is, Ralph. So a couple of Big East matchups getting it going here tonight. And it's time for some best bets here, Ralph. So looking across the board here, where are you throwing your best bet down on?
I am going with the Ramblers. Loyola's laying 3 or 3.5 going into Valpo. It's a game that, the Loyola team is not the team that went to the Final Four, but, they're a solid team, and they've got some young kids that are playing better in the backcourt. You're coming off a loss to Davidson at home, and, you have the best unit on the field. Your defense is by far the best unit. Valpo's really missing couple guys that transferred out that were the heart and soul of the team. And yeah, Valpo comes in at 7-6, and they don't have any bad losses, but they also don't have any good wins. So they've done exactly what you expect: beat up people that they're supposed to beat up and lose to teams that they're supposed to lose to. And I clearly have Loyola as the better team.
I'm looking at the under in that too, Ralph. Aren't the Ramblers pretty? I don't know if they're 300, but they got to be somewhere close in tempo, aren't they? I mean, they can't be. I know they're not quick by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, they're playing much quicker than they were. I mean, last year they were 346, Joe.
Oh,
this year they're 250s.
All right.
He has sped it up, and it's because he has the point guard now. He went with the freshman Marquee Kennedy, and he really feels comfortable with him pushing the pace a little bit. And you look at Valpo. Valpo's actually a team in the top 100 with tempo, and on offense, they're number 45. So they have gotten out and tried to push the pace, but a lot of those are SIU Edwardsville, and they scored 89, and High Point, and they scored 87, and Trinity, a non-Division I team, and they scored 98. So, the tempo is also. I'm looking at the defenses they've played. You played 5 defenses that were 260 or higher. In those games, you scored 75 or more. Well, this is the third best or fourth best defense you faced. And against those other top defenses, you scored 70, 77, 57, and 62.
So you've got some numbers on their side for that game, and I can't believe I'm saying this here, Ralph, but I'm going to go with them again here tonight, even though they let me down here earlier. And man, every time I play this team, I get a game like I did when I backed them against Stanford. I'm going with the damn Dons again. I'm going San Francisco here tonight, taking on another year. This seems to be like the year of the Ivy League. Everyone wants to tell me how great these Ivy League teams are, and we've talked about Harvard this year. And they've actually been a pretty decent team there. They've battled through some injuries, but I just think San Francisco is the better team to this point. Not to mention they've been amazing at home. They've won 7 of their first 8 home games this year. In front of the home crowd here tonight, the number opened up at 6. It's been actually pushed down to 5. This is a rare spot for Harvard too. They're playing a road game, Ralph, if I'm not mistaken, for the second straight night. So, maybe fatigue comes into play here, makes it a little bit easier. I do think San Francisco pulls away in the second half in this game, so I would lay the 5 points and back the Dons tonight.
Well, just like San Francisco played Pac-12 teams back-to-back nights, right? They made that trip, and they, California and San Fran. So what do they want to do? They only wanted to spend the one-night hotel, so they schedule back-to-back nights, and then they'll fly home right after the game. So it's cost-effective for them. They did beat Cal last night, 71-63, but I can't argue the play. Just because Bryce Aiken's still out. When Aiken's in, I think Harvard's the better team than San Fran, but Aiken's missed, he missed a couple games. He came back, played 5 or 6 games, got hurt, hasn't played the last couple games, and I believe he's still out for this game.
Yep, so it's, Lord knows Harvard doesn't have any money to be able to afford an extra night in a hotel, because we wouldn't want to be hitting up any of the alumni at Harvard for another night's stay in California. No, we couldn't possibly do that. He is Ralph Michaels. Want to remind you guys, wagertalk.com is definitely where you guys want to get to here. Plays available not only tonight, of course, but all week long. Plenty of college hoops coming your way, guys, but you got to get to wagertalk.com. Make sure you visit the Cal Sports page. Also, make sure you tailing Ralph on Twitter at CalSportsLV. So plays are in, guys. Good luck. And, Ralph, it should be a fun night of college hoops. Looking forward to getting back into the swing of things here.
It should, guys. I know this is college basketball, but just a reminder, $9 Mondays. I actually have my first ever 5% bull side play up for $9 that they can grab at Wager Talk now.
What are you waiting for, guys? Got to get to wagertalk.com. Get there today, wagertalk.com. Grab Ralph's very rare 5% bull side here available to you right now. So, Ralph, good luck to you, brother man. We will do this again tomorrow.
Thanks, Joe. Talk to you in 23.